In this video, we're going to talk about another type of elapsed time problem you'll see. So in this video, we're going to talk about when the question gives you the start time and the elapsed time. So your job is to find the end time. Just as a reminder, the definition of elapsed time is the amount of time that passes between one time and another. And then when you find the elapsed time, draw a visual using a number line. Here's the key at the bottom to help you with your visual. Use a mountain to represent 1 hour, a hill to represent 5, 10, or 30 minutes, and use a rock to represent 1 minute. Now we're going to look at this question. A game started at the time shown on the clock. The time shown on the clock is 11:45. The game ended 2 hours and 35 minutes later. So your job is to find what time the game ended. So let's write what we know. So we know our start time, which is 11:45 a.m. Then it says the game ended 2 hours and 35 minutes later, and there's a blank where it says what time it ended. So we know the elapsed time, or the ET. So that's 2 hours, 35 minutes. What you're looking for is the end time. That's what you're trying to solve. I'm going to draw my number line first. Remember, you're going to need a lot of space for most of these lines. It's better to have too much than too little. So go ahead and turn your paper sideways so you have enough room. We know our start time, so I can go ahead and write my start time down. That's 11:45 a.m. And then I don't know my end time, so I'm going to put end with a question mark. The only thing you know is your elapsed time. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split up this elapsed time a little bit so that it's easier to work with. So I'm going to draw a T-chart. And I'm going to start with that 2 hours. So I'm going to have hours over here. And I'm going to break that into 2 separate hours. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. So that's how I'm going to divide that. And then on the right, I'm going to have the minutes. And all I'm doing is breaking this 35 minutes into smaller increments that are easier to work with. It's always easier when you're doing time to work with 5 minutes and 10 minutes or even 1 minute increments. So I can bump this down, so I can split it up and make it 3 10 minutes and a 5 minutes. So 10 plus 10 plus 10 gives you 30, 10, 20, 30, plus 5 minutes brings you to 35. So it's still the same amount of time, just broken into smaller chunks, so it's easier to do on my line. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get started with my line. I want to do my 2 hours first, so I'm going to do 1 hour at a time. So here's my first mountain. So 11:45 a.m. plus 1 hour brings you to 12:45 p.m. And now I can cross off that hour. Now I have another hour I need to add. So I draw another mountain and I write plus 1 hour. 12:45 p.m. plus 1 hour brings you to 1:45 p.m. And that takes care of my second hour. So my 2 hour part of this problem is done. The only thing I have left to add on my line is my 35 minutes, which I've broken down into 3 10s and a 5. So I'm going to draw my first hill of 10. So plus 10 minutes. So 1:45 p.m. plus 10 minutes brings you to 1:55 p.m. And that takes care of the first 10 minutes. Now I'm going to add my next 10 minutes. 1:55 p.m. plus 10 minutes brings you to 2:05 p.m. You could do it by ones there. If you did 5 ones, it would bring you to 2 o'clock. 5 more ones would bring you to 2:05. We just did it all together. So 2:05 p.m. takes care of my second group of 10. Now my third group of 10, (2:05 plus 10 minutes brings you to 2:15 p.m. And now I have a 5-minute increment left. So I'm going to do my last till of 5 minutes. So 2:15 plus 5 minutes brings you to 2:20 p.m. Okay, so now you always want to go back and check. It told me to do 2 hours and 35 minutes on my line to find the end time. So here are my first 2 hours, 10, 20, 30, 35 minutes. So now I know I've done my line correctly. So I went from 11:45 in the morning to 2:20 p.m. So that makes my end time 2:20 p.m. So 2:20 p.m. is my final answer.